All right, my friends. So here we are for our main idea and details lesson. It's going to be pretty short. It's not a full comprehensive lesson because I know that this is something that as fifth graders going into sixth grade, you've learned a lot about. But the way that I think about main ideas and details in a nonfiction text is kind of like the yin-yang symbol. If you don't know the background of a yin-yang symbol, it's basically there's the white side and the black side. Um, the white side is supposed to represent all of the good things in the world. The black side is representing some of the less good things in the world. You can also see that there's white in the black and black in the white. They are interconnected. They go together. You cannot have one without the other. The same thing is true for main ideas and details. You could go through a piece of nonfiction text and pick out a main idea, but if you don't have the details that support that main idea, you have no way of knowing if it's actually the main idea, and chances are it probably isn't. So like if going back to a lesson we did earlier using that lightning example, if I decide that passage, the main idea is that lightning is 60,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and I said, that's my main idea, everything else is supporting that. I have to think to myself, do I actually have information that supports that? Or am I just picking something at random and hoping that it's the main idea? So main idea and details are similar to this yin-yang symbol because you need to have one to have the other. You need to have that other one to make sure the first one is correct. Okay. So let's talk about details. Let's talk about why they're important. Details, like I said earlier, are what tell you if the main idea you picked out is right or wrong. Some texts have more information than you think, and sometimes they even have information that is not relevant, or even they have some information that feels like it could be the main idea. But without the details, you don't know if that's true. Similarly, if you have a longer nonfiction text, like I will show you my example. My example is this book that I'm reading. It's called We Got This. It's like a full text. It's got chapters. It's called We Got This, Equity, Access, and the Quest to Be Who Our Students Need Us to Be. So I can already tell by my title, I'm going to be learning about equity, access, and how to be a better teacher, how to be available to my students. But that doesn't mean that that is the only thing I'm going to learn about in here. I have to make an assumption that in a book this long, there are going to be different subtitles or different chapters. This one says begin by listening. So now I'm thinking to myself, well, I can't just say the main idea of this chapter is also equity, access, and being who the students need you to be. I have to say to myself, this chapter is probably about listening. But at the same time, when I'm reading and looking for a main idea, I have to read the whole thing first, not the whole book. I don't have to read this whole book before I decide, okay, that's the main idea. But I have to break it down chapter by chapter, section by section, and figure out what my main idea is based on the details that the story or the book or the chapter or the paragraph gives me. We talked a little bit about when we were doing main idea that it's usually the first sentence or it's the title or the subtitle. And we talked about what happens if there is no title. But as writers, we also know when we write informational, we want to put a hook in there to get the reader interested. So maybe that first sentence is not the best thing to look at. Maybe we need to read the whole thing before we decide what our main idea is. Okay, so we're gonna look at a text together. I have some questions we're gonna have to talk about. We are pros at learning about the structure of a text. We are learning about the main idea. We're figuring out what the author is trying to teach us, and now we're going to add in that next level of details, and we have to have those details to support us what we're talking about. Okay, here's our section, or not section, text. It is called Two American Bears. I can make a prediction that it's going to be about bears and two different kinds of bears, but I can't just say that's my main idea. We can't just decide that's what it is without knowing first. Okay, so I'm going to read it to you. How can you tell a grizzly bear from a black bear? Although the grizzly bear is in the brown bear family, you cannot tell it from a black bear just by fur color. Black bears are frequently black, but they can also be brown. Brown bears are also occasionally black. One of the surest ways to tell these two bears apart is by the structures of their heads. A grizzly bear has a short, stubby snout and a broad head. Its ears are round and small. A black bear has a much longer, pointed snout and longer ears. Remember, whether a bear is black or brown, keep your distance. So, that's our text. Think back. What was that first question? The first question we need to make sure we have the answer to before we can decide the main idea or take notes or find the details. The first question is, what is the structure? Here are our 5 structures. Description, sequence, cause and effect, problem solution, and compare and contrast. I'm going to say that even though there is description in here, not necessarily all description, because there's something, one of these other ones supersedes the description that we see. Looking at sequence, does it tell me things that are happening in order? No, I don't see any of my keywords that say first, next, then last. I don't see any dates. I don't see any numbers. I don't see any of that. So no. The next one is cause and effect. Is something happening that's causing something else to happen? No. Is there a problem? Do I see the word problem? Do I see the word solution? No. What does that leave us with? It leaves us with compare and contrast. So it says 2 American bears. And then it says, how can you tell a grizzly bear from a black bear? Oh, we're comparing these 2 bears. We're comparing the difference between them. So it is compare and contrast. So we've got our structure down. Perfect. Now we have to look at the main idea. If I'm comparing 2 bears, what is the author trying to teach me? The author is trying to teach me that there is a difference between black bears and brown bears, and they want to show me how to tell them apart. My main idea is, how can you tell a grizzly bear from a black bear? It did happen to be my first sentence. In this case, it happened to be the first sentence that I have here. How can you tell a grizzly bear from a black bear? My main idea is how to tell the difference between a black bear and a grizzly bear. Moving on. Now that we know our main idea, and that we can answer that third question too. That third question was, what is the author trying to teach us? They're trying to teach us the difference between a black bear and a brown bear. Perfect. Answered that question. Now the last question. I'm sorry, I'm looking at it on my phone to make sure I don't forget them. What details support this? How do I know that is what I am looking for? There's some information here. This is telling us you cannot tell it a black bear from a brown bear just by its fur color. You cannot tell just by that. So they're telling us things we can't do. I want to know things we can do. All right, so I see this word here, apart. They're telling them apart. It's telling me that they are different. One of the surest ways is by the structures of their heads. There's one detail. You can tell grizzly bears apart by the structure of their heads. Maybe my my evidence, if they were to ask me, what is the main idea and details of this text? And I had to write it down and answer, maybe my evidence would be they have different head structures. For example, short stubby snout and a broad head, longer pointed snout. Another detail, I'm going to use green this time, longer ears, small round ears. Okay, those are it. That's the details. And we're done. If I were to write something about the main idea and details, if I were asked, hey, Miss W, I need you to write down, tell me what the main idea is and what are the details that support this as a question on a test or practice or homework or whatever, I would say the main idea of this section or of this text is how to tell a grizzly bear from a black bear. In the text, it says one of the ways to tell the two bears apart is by the structures of their head. An example of this is that a grizzly bear has a short, stubby snout and a broad head. A grizzly bear also has round and small ears. A black bear has, on the other hand, there's that compare and contrast. You use those words when you're doing answers to questions too. On the other hand, a black bear has a longer pointed snout. A black bear also has longer ears. That's my answer. I'm done. That's the answer to my problem. Perfect. I pulled it right from the text. Okay, so that is it. That's in summary. Main idea and details. They are like links in a chain. You cannot, like if I wanted to have a chain, I need them to be together, or they are the yin and yang. They go together, they belong together. You cannot have one without the other. Okay? And that's it. That's the end of this lesson. I will talk to you guys later. Have a good one.